And this is finally the last part of what constitutes the American legal system, and I just wanted you to see the complexity of it and the constitutional powers of our government. Again, remember, the Constitution is the contract that gives us rights against the government, the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the most important part is the freedom of speech again. And we're going to go into detail later on about it when we go into marketing and advertisement and also copyright material. And then we have freedom of religion. Freedom of speech is a situation where many times the newspaper would use the freedom of speech because they feel like they can say anything they want to. I mean, after all, the newspaper is really for us, not for the government, it's for us. So that they can say things, and if you remember when we did the gubernatorial case, the newspaper cannot, under the umbrella of the freedom of speech or after of the right, then do something that between you and I, it's illegal or unlawful. Because under the freedom of speech, then they are able to do what? Copyright material, they can get into formulas because they have the right to reveal all kinds of information that they come across. That means they can come into people's houses and reveal situation, and that's not possible. Freedom of religion, we have a problem in that. That's not the beautiful things. We are a Judeo-Christian nation. Holidays like Christmas, we don't have to ask permission. I mean, it's automatically a holiday. And where we have in our society, we have people for other religion like Muslim and Jewish people where they are protected under the law. And I know cases where a vice president would have a meeting, a speech, a very important speech, and it was sundown, and the Jewish person, because of his culture and because of his religion, decided to get up and walk out of his speech. And of course the vice president was insulted, and as soon as he finished his conference, he wanted to have the guy terminated. And the guy was terminated because he's the vice president. And then the guy that was terminated went to court. Now, it could have been that he was terminated for other reason in addition to that, but that was like the icing on the cake, I call it. He was able to get the keys to get into court and to prove that he was terminated because of his religion, because he got up in the middle of the speech because it was getting sundown. He had to be home by sundown. And he won the case because, again, it's in a company and he's a private person, and the standard of proof, that means the plaintiff, which is the person that was terminated, first of all, suffered damages. He lost his job, lost money. Second of all, 51% of evidence could it possibly be that it's because of your religion? Yes. 49, even if the company had 49% evidence that it was not the reason why he was terminated, but if he had 51, he won the case. And in that situation, and when it comes to religion, we have also a problem. Because by the time you come to the court, for example, the court is government. So you know that the court really do not like to hear cases about religion. And we have different tests because it's the court. So if you are Protestant and the defendant is Muslim or vice versa, if the court decides for the defendant and is Muslim, you know that the society at large is going to say, I can't believe that the minority people gets away with everything. And if the court decides for the Protestant or the Catholic or the Christian one, well, that shows you that, you know, the judge must be a Christian or must be a Catholic person. Very interesting that way. So court really do not like religion. And you're going to see later on when we go to employment law, the difficulties that the court has sometimes because the court is government. So they have to be very careful which side they're taking because one way or the other, they're going to be damned. Then we have the due process and equal protection, and that's another thing that I find very interesting. The due process, again, is a right under the Constitution which says Congress is writing a statute which limit liberty for all. Because we have a right to life, we have a right to liberty, we have a right to property and the pursuit of happiness. And therefore Congress, which writes laws that protect society at large, cannot limit liberty or our acquiring property or our liberty, property, and life has to treat everybody equal. They cannot write anything that will take our liberty away. This is why when I went to law school and I couldn't believe how beautiful our rights under the Constitution is the first case that we had where we put a metal detector in the airport. It was unconstitutional because it was limiting what? Everybody was limiting. So all the search that's going on, like search and seizure, all these things that we go now that we're so used to it now. For example, the first case that they took the urine to find out if the employee was taking drugs, it was unconstitutional. Because a search and seizure, taking your blood or taking your urine, that is your property. And for the government to take that property, in this case was a public employment, if for the government to take your property, they have to have probable cause that you're about to commit a crime. Not to take the urine or the blood to find out as evidence if you do take the drugs. So it's very interesting. And of course, equal protection is law which limits liberty of some people. Of some people. You know, how come he can do it but not me? And this is where it's very, and you're going to see this is why you have equal employment opportunity. A company cannot limit some people from having an opportunity to do a job. Having for sons, we have good discussions sometimes because they play football, and they will say to me, Mom, why would a lady want to play football? You know, and I says, I don't know why, but she wants to have equal opportunity. She wants to have an opportunity to play the football, and then when she plays the football and she sees that it's not worth playing with you guys, but she wants to have the opportunity to apply. She doesn't want to be told by somebody, listen, don't even bother because you're a female, you're not going to be able to play football. We just, you know, you're going to be crushed by as soon as you play what first game. And this is why equal protection comes in. You cannot have laws that limits certain people from having an equal opportunity to do whatever they want to. Even if you know that it's not good for the person, you have to give the person, they have to learn by themselves that that's where they don't want to be. And then of course we have privacy rights. That's another beautiful thing. So what I'm trying to explain here shows you that because of the Constitution, we behave, or we say it's appropriate behavior, because we have rights under the Constitution. And of course, again, this is the Constitution. That means I have an absolute right against government, not against another individual. Privacy rights is very, very important. And this is where we have a lot of problem today, because with the internet, your employer is monitoring. And of course, the reasoning or the justification that we have that is because of safety. You know, everything is monitored. But cases of the cases went to court, and the judge had to decide. And you're going to see that we are trying to enforce an ethical behavior. What is ethical? Well, forget about the individual rights. We don't do that anymore. So the goal of our legal system is trying to have a balance between the individual right, because we still got the Constitution, and the rights of society at large, or the rights of society, or what the reasonable people think is a right, or the way they interpret it. It makes it very, very interesting when I see this dilemma that the court has sometimes. So yes, you have privacy right in employment, especially if the employment is a public employment, because the Constitution kicks in. Next thing you know, what is the employer then, being the government? Oh, we're going to monitoring you. Why? Forget about your privacy rights. Well, maybe you're going to become postal and you're going to shoot people at government. And I guess I shouldn't say postal, but you know what I mean, because it does not mean that only people at the post office are going crazy. Almost every profession today is going crazy. But this is where it's very interesting, the complex or the dilemma between your rights, that you behave because you have rights in the Constitution, and then what is the behavior that society at large thinks you should behave. And a company is an individual under the Constitution. So in a way, the company is saying, or a business says, government, you have no right to tell me what to do. But then we, the society at large, says, yes, they do, because why? We need protection. So when we need protection, where do we go? To the government, to Congress. Please, Congress, limit some of this product that are misrepresenting us. And it's very, very interesting that way. So the Constitution, remember, through all this, the course, is protecting the individual against government only. Statutory law instead protects society, the society at large. Who's the society at large? The reasonable people. Who are these reasonable people? And sometimes I say, when my husband disagrees with me, it must be unreasonable. But what I mean is the group of people that have little disagreement about the same issue. And if you think back a couple of years ago when we had our former President Clinton, you know, we had problem deciding as a society, should he be impeached or not? And therefore, when the House of Representatives said yes and the Senate says no, why? Because 61% of the population, the reasonable people, the society at large, felt the former President Clinton was doing a good job. Therefore, let's not impeach him. So if he wants to have extracurricular activity, that's not our issue between society and the president. That's an issue between husband and wife. And 61% felt that he was doing a good job as a president, and even if his behavior was not acceptable because of our Judeo-Christian value, because to this day the Bible says you're supposed to have only one wife, and you're not supposed to have any affairs or extracurricular activity if you're married. You're not supposed to have any of those curricula even before you're married. But here you see, as a society, how we're changing. Here, civil law and criminal law. Oh, this is great. This is the thing that I wanted to explain before, that I wanted to, the purpose of the civil law and the criminal law. Civil law is between rights and duties between individuals. But then remember, I said the words rights. You have freedom of speech because you have people under the Constitution, but you don't have an absolute right between another individual. And you have duties between individuals. There's a certain ethical behavior. Remember when I was saying what is ethics? Ethics is expectational behavior. And what is then a business ethics? And then it's expectational behavior in business. And there is certain obligations that we treat each other. And remember, the theory that I was explaining to you is sometimes we are nice to people because of our religion. Sometimes we are nice to people because of consequences. You know, I want other people to treat me. I treat other people as I would like other people to treat me. And of course, the ethical behavior or the ethical perspective that we are leaning toward, as a matter of fact, I think after 9/11 we are doing it, is outcome. What is the greatest good for the greatest number? What kind of behavior makes more people happier or pleases more people? So if 61 or 65% this is the way we should behave, or if 65% of society says it's okay for homosexuals to be married and they should be allowed to marry within a society, then we're going to have a law. I don't think we're ever going to have a federal law about that, but each state's going to have their own law, just like each state has their own law about abortion. And you know, every state, according to the population there, what they value, the outcome. Is most people in that state thinks it's okay to have an abortion, then you're going to have that. If most state in the state still thinks it's illegal or whatever their value is, then you're going to see the statute is going to be different. This is why we have all this situation. And this is a wrongful act. In civil, it's harm to a person. In a criminal law, it's a violation of what? Of a state. Oh, that's very important. You become a criminal person, depends on the state you live. You know, every state has definition of crimes. For example, now, New Jersey and New York, you commit a crime if you're driving while you're speaking on the phone with your cell phone. Other states, you're not a criminal. So there are certain crimes in New Jersey that you're a criminal and not in Pennsylvania. It's very, very interesting that way. So crimes is defined by the state because it's offense in that person. Party who brings a suit, the person who suffered the harm. Instead, in criminal law is a state. Standard of proof, again, preponderance of evidence. It's a scale, 51%, 49%. Usually the plaintiff win in a civil action. It's very easy to persuade the judge that you have 51% evidence that you were harmed by that person. And that person, what they say or did not say harm you. Where instead, when the state takes you to court, then it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And the remedy, of course, big difference. In a civil action, it's money. You have to be put back in the same position you were before you got hurt. In a criminal law, instead, it's punishment, fine, jail time. So one of the things that is very interesting in this case that we have right now is Michael Jackson. In 1993, that case was civil case. That's why they were able to settle out of court, and it was all about money. Now it's the state that is taking Michael Jackson to court. That means there's going to be some kind of punishment. And from my understanding, from what I'm reading, he's charged of 4 count or 4 grounds. So some way, somehow, there's going to be at least 1 count that he will be charged. And then, of course, we have statutory law that says how much time. Is it 2 days in jail and 6 months of probation, whatever. But that has nothing to do now with money. It has nothing to do with compensating the injured person, anything like that. This is now the state that is accusing him of behavior that is not acceptable in that state. Very, very interesting. So we're gonna again, I'm gonna put questions, and we're gonna discuss cases that at present you're gonna hear on the news or even in your textbook. Thank you.